Hey there folks, this is GreenXI welcoming you right back to Let's Play Higurashi. It's episode 21. In the last episode we found out, well, Keiichi got extremely excluded or secluded from everyone else at school and everything. He grabbed a metal bat that happened to be Satoshi's, who is Satoko's brother who went missing. Who knows what happened to him really, a couple of years ago. And, you know, he's getting some self-defense and stuff. And Rena told him that the bat belonged to Satoshi and that Keiichi is copying everything that Satoshi did before he transferred out. So, let's get on with it. Satoshi and I had what? All my well-planned actions throughout the day turned out to have been nothing more than a reenactment of what Satoshi had done. Satoshi, had he really been in the same situation as I was now? The friends he had gotten along with had changed suddenly, and for no reason, at least none that I had noticed, planned to kill him. Then, fearing for his life as I am, he got a bat to protect himself and carried it around every day to practice the swing. Exactly. This is a nice way of summarizing things. And then one day, suddenly, he transferred. Is Keiichi going to transfer as well? My blood went cold, causing a prickling sensation to course through my veins. Starting in my heart, it radiated outwards from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, chilling every part of me without recourse. What did she mean by transfer? What did she mean by transfer? Was Satoshi still at whatever he transferred to? Was he the only one who would be able to understand me? Would he be able to tell me why it all ended up like this? More importantly, where did he transfer to? What did she mean by transfer? That's the big question. What did she mean by transfer? Before I knew it, I was at my front door. The frigid knob was hard to turn. Say nothing. Was nobody home? It wasn't that odd of an occurrence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the single key attached to my fur seal keychain. Okay. Don't have to attach it to that, mate. I'm sure it's safe enough without going that far. I stepped into the entryway. Just as I was about to take off my shoes, a chill ran down my spine. Someone had entered right behind me. Like a classmate messing around, standing right up against my back. You're kidding, right? It had to be my imagination. I like that little bit of Chinese, Asian, Japanese music going on then. Oriental music, I think it's called. Logically speaking, it was impossible for someone to be able to hide their presence within my personal space all the way through the door. But there was undoubtedly someone behind me. Hey now, Keiichi. How do you know they're there, even though they're behind you? Because I could hear the sound of flowing hair. There's no other reason I'd hear that sound. That was the presence. Because I could hear the sound of them blinking. Keiichi Maebara, there's no way you could hear that. It was mostly instinct than anything else that was warning me of the presence. Common sense was telling me that it was just my imagination. It was just my imagination. There was no doubt behind me. I began to erase the mental image of an eerie figure standing behind me. But at the same time I asked myself, if there was nobody, then what was I feeling? As an uncomfortable sensation crawling up my spine. Actually, wouldn't it be better if there was somebody there? If there was nobody there when you turned around, would you be able to accept that? I'd be able to answer all those questions just by looking behind me, but I didn't have enough courage to even do that simple task. Right, I could try speaking to them. The person behind me might answer me. It was a random thought. I didn't care how I went about it, just as long as I didn't have to turn around. If I had calmed down and thought about it, I would have known that that wouldn't have solved anything. Who is it? I spoke in such a hoarse, broken voice that I couldn't believe it was my own. I could almost feel them contemplating their response. I felt it. There's no way I should be able to do that. Calm down, Keiichi. It's all in your head. Is it? Yeah. That time I was certain I heard it. As if hesitantly trying to answer my inquiry, I was certain I could hear the sound of somebody inhaling. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it clearly. It was a girl. A young girl. I didn't know who, but a tiny speck of courage in me, however reckless it was, inspired a primal yet fitting solution to this current predicament. A scream. All the force of my body released from my lungs and through my throat, ceasing all thought processes in my head. Suppressing all my thoughts and emotions, I began to collapse like a house of cards, somehow managing to twist my body and look back as I did so. It was definitely there. Right there. Somebody was there. Until the moment I turned around, until I brought the area behind me into my field of vision, they were definitely there. Falling face up, my eyes traced the remnants of the presence suspended in the empty space. It couldn't be. They were invisible. They looked like they weren't there. But were they actually still standing there? As I screamed, all the emotions I was holding back burst free in a violent wave. However, I was decidedly calm as my emotional dam collapsed. The turbulent wave of pent-up emotions was skillfully diverted into a torrent of aggression. That emotion was definitely required to extricate myself from the bizarre situation happening right in front of me. In my state of heightened lucidity, I entrusted my body to the fury. The metal bat held firm in my right hand as if drawn there by a magnet. A mid-level sweep would be the hardest attack to dodge. I remembered reading something like that from a book about swordsmanship or something. I brandished my will to fight. The afterimage of that amalgamation of metal flashed as it swung from left to right, beating against the entryway. The bat slammed into the right wall, the tip rebounding violently. Very calmly, I transferred the force of the rebound into a sweep to the left. The door of the shoe cupboard was split into pieces. Those two swings whiffed through empty space, but they seemed to have a great psychological impact on the enemy. I could feel the panic emanated from that space. The attack wasn't the only thing required. I extracted the bat from the cupboard it was embedded in and screamed as I spun my entire body around in a large arc. Oh dear. My screams shook the air, imbuing my ferocious swing with even more destructive power. Oh shit, he's destroying the house. Crack! Without mercy or restraint, my violent strike, with certainly fatal force behind it, shattered the top of the cupboard. None of my attacks struck the enemy, but my frosty had certainly seemed to impact them. Breathing heavily, my entire body soaked in sweat, the invisible enemy, there but not there, dispersed. When I was certain that the enemy had retreated, I locked the front door and latched the chain. No way, I did only feigned retreat and was now inside my house. Once again, I channeled my aggression and searched the house for the presence, but it was gone. I'd succeeded in fending it off. At that moment, the tension drained from my body and I let out a deep sigh of relief. All of the emotions I'd been holding back chaotically merged together and began to flood out. A hodgepodge of fear, accomplishment and disbelief all mixed together and began to flow through my body. Unable to deal with each individual feeling, I beat them all back with the strongest, exhaustion. Even in this moment, I remained composed. Okay, I want to remind you of something now. Can you remember when they said that Rena went through the school, destroying all the windows? I think that was with a bat, or was it with an axe or something? Either way. Can you remember, it said in one sentence that she had a presence following her and scaring her shitless, basically. Similar to this. Yeah, I'd say so. After checking that all the doors throughout the house were locked, I went up to my room on the second floor and closed the curtains. It looks like there's blood on the door now. Can you see it? I straightened my back and tilted my head back a little. After clearing my mind of all my idle thoughts, I managed to calm down even more. What was that at the front door? There was definitely something there. Thinking about it, maybe it was just an apparition I dreamt up in my confused state, but I really didn't think that was the case. Calm down, Keiichi. Compose yourself. But no matter how calmly I thought about it, what just happened wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was obviously a supernatural phenomenon, and without a doubt, something was behind me. It wasn't some sort of illusion I saw amidst my confusion and disorientation. Proof? I had just one piece. When asked, "Who is it?" they inhaled as if they were about to answer. That sound had clearly reached my ears. The situation I was in right now was still unclear. Either I'd been possessed by the supernatural phenomenon, known as Higurashi's curse. Because we're not certain what that is even still, not really. Or this was a ruse by the villagers who believed in it and were imitating it. Good point. Either way, their motives were unclear. The roundabout way it had been done was also still a mystery. If it was perpetrated by humans, that would mean admitting that it was Rena and the rest of them doing it, but it would be solvable. I was not saying this again, so Higurashi and the rest of the police would surely arrest my enemy. But if it was a manifestation of Oyashiro-sama's curse, I wondered what would happen. See, in the anime you don't get all this repetition. You have 4 episodes for this arc, all at about 25 minutes, half hour each. And it doesn't repeat half as much. Higurashi very clearly declared that curses didn't exist. At that time, those words were pretty dependable, but as things were now, with the rising possibility that the perpetrators were not human, he suddenly seemed quite unreliable. He's starting to distrust Higurashi as well, the only person he could trust before. If I told Uishi-san that this was the work of Oyoshiro-sama's curse, what would happen? I couldn't imagine his reaction, but it would go without question that a void would expand rapidly between myself and Uishi-san. With me having so few allies to begin with, and not being able to confidently declare whether or not this was a curse or not, there was no merit to doing that. I better keep the facts of what just happened at the doorway to myself. It'd be better if I didn't add what happened here to the memo behind the clock. There was still the ever so slight possibility that I was actually confused when I thought I was composed, and I was just going berserk in the entryway. How wonderful would that be if it was really what happened? I would be able to refute Oyoshiro-sama's curse. But if I denied Oyoshiro-sama's curse, then that would mean admitting that Rena and the rest were the perpetrators. We know! We've said it about 20 times! If I said that Rena and the rest weren't the perpetrators, then that... Okay. By denying both of those, I would be admitting that I myself was losing it. The three options from which I couldn't choose became a trilemma of sorts. They mixed together and formed a whirlpool in my mind, making my head spin. Once again, I straightened myself and leaned my head back slightly to cool myself down. Calm down, Keiichi. Accept what has actually happened as reality. Stop thinking of anything more than that. But I couldn't help but think of it. How wonderful it would be if it turned out I was delirious and everything up until now was a figment of my imagination. Oyoshiro-sama's curse wouldn't exist, and I would still be bestest buddies with Rena and the rest. I would have to be crazy. That was the first time in my life I'd ever wished for such a thing. Nope. The phone rang noisily downstairs. I have got to say I love the music playing at this point. It might, it might sound a bit generic maybe, but I still love it. Generally, there were no calls for me, so I never really answered the phone much. That's the same as me actually, with the house phone. But since my parents weren't here, I had no choice. I squirmed off the bed and went downstairs. Hello, this is the Mayabara residence. Keiichi, this is Mum. I intuitively had a bad feeling about this. It was because I thought she was going to ask me to go out and buy some things, so I took the initiative. What? I don't mind having instant noodles for dinner. There's still a lot of them. The other day, we went out as a family and bought a whole case of cup noodles. I wanted to get a bunch of different kinds actually, but they refused since the individual packs were expensive, so instead I got a whole case of the mega-sized pork bone and ginger flavoured ones I liked. Pork bone? Why not just pork? But my parents don't like strong flavours and didn't touch any of them, so the cupboards were still full of them. So you see, there really isn't a need to go shopping, right? Keiichi, I'm asking you to go shopping. Both Mommy and Daddy have to go to Tokyo right now because of work. This is the worst time for Keiichi to have his parents go away. Right now? This was really abrupt. No, we're already here. We left this afternoon. It's quite a distance to Tokyo from Hinamazawa. Getting it full speed down the highway would still take 6 hours. Dad has a license, but since he doesn't like the highway, they likely took the train. It would have taken longer. You know, I prefer the train to driving as well, because I have no sense of direction. I'm thinking you might understand since you heard us speaking last night, but it has to do with Daddy's contract. Right now, things aren't going so smoothly. Now that you mentioned it, I did remember they talked all that time about how his job prospects weren't looking so good. Daddy is really sensitive about things like this, so if we leave things as they are, it will affect his work. Part of my father's particular fragile artistic personality, his emotions changed as easy as the fall sky. You could also just say he couldn't take criticism. But something like this can be done over the phone. Keiichi, this is your father's job, so can you support him a bit please? Anyway, it's just faster to talk about it in person, so there won't be any misunderstandings. As his son, there was nothing more I could say once they started talking about work. So we'll be back tomorrow night. Keiichi, will you be fine on your own? It's not like I'll die or anything. Sorry. Cough. Keiichi, you shouldn't speak so lightly of dying. If there's something troubling you, just talk to us. I do that exact same thing actually. I do make jokes about dying and stuff. Not because it's obviously not a funny topic to talk about, but you make light of things, don't you, that you don't like. I believe Mommy will be able to help out. Yesterday I did bring up if I died rather abruptly, so I suppose they were a little worried. But really I was more depressed by the fact that nothing would be solved by telling them. But I didn't plan on dying. At least, Not while I still knew nothing. I would never allow it. I won't die. I won't. I'll survive even if I have to gnaw my leg off. Yeah. See you then. Tomorrow morning, make sure to wake up and eat your breakfast. And don't forget to take a bath and brush your teeth. Yeah, see you. The call ended like that. Sometimes my parents went off to Tokyo for business meetings, but Tokyo was far away. They normally did things by phone. The times they did go were normally planned out in advance. It never happened this suddenly. I can say that those circumstances didn't feel strange, or rather, unnatural. Anyway, I only needed to recognize the reality of the situation, that tonight I was the only one in the house. That when my parents came back from work, I'd be gone. Missing. Vanished. Looking back on the series of events of the previous 5 years involving Oyashiro-sama's curse, it wouldn't seem that strange at all. Come to think of it, it was getting pretty late. I didn't think it was good that the only light on in the whole house was from my room on the 2nd floor. It was the same as broadcasting to the enemy that my parents were gone, and this was their chance. First I ran to the living room, flicked on the lights, and turned the TV on to a reassuring volume. Next was the study. I similarly turned on the lights and some music. Sounds like a good idea. Very paranoid. But maybe it's got reason to be. With this, from the outside it would look like my parents were here. Once again, I went through the house, checking to see if there was anything left unlocked. When I saw the veranda and the laundry still hanging out there, I went pale. That would have made it too obvious. I needed to take it down. I snatched down the laundry haphazardly and erased all traces that my mother wasn't there. It should be fine now. Ah! The garage! They hadn't gone all the way to Tokyo by car, but they had gone up to Okinamaya Station. The garage was empty, wide open, and in plain sight. This was not good. I panicked and rushed out the back to close the normally open garage door. It should be fine now. Ah! I needed to get the paper. Oh god! Mum always got the paper. Since I left in the afternoon, the evening paper is still out there. I was thinking of a lot, didn't he? Bloody hell. My premonition was correct. I pulled out everything from the mailbox and dropped it in the entryway. With this, for sure this time, it should be fine. Come to think of it, leaving the cupboard busted like that from my little freakout was kind of bad. I'll just say I tripped and fell, and the bat I was holding smashed into it. Even so, just leaving it in its current state wasn't good. I should clean it up a little before Mum got back and scolded me. I remembered that there was a broom and dustpan in the closet. As I was going to get them, the phone rang once again. Oh, it's the parents again. Hello, this is the Maibara residence. Was this Keiichi-kun? Is your mother around? Maybe not. Ah, she isn't here at the moment. You idiot, Keiichi. Don't reveal that the parents are gone. You can follow up still. Calm down, take care of it. I think she'll be back soon. That wasn't a good response either. Now they might say they'll call again, or to tell her to call them when she comes back. Then that's fine. It wasn't anything important. Well then, sorry for the bother. The scenario I feared didn't play out, eliciting a sigh of relief. That call was fortunate in more ways than one. I'd have to deal with more telephone calls coming in from my parents tonight. I was somehow able to deal with the phone call just now, but I couldn't continue to rely on such poor improvisation. I needed to make up a good story to explain that my parents were home, but couldn't answer the phone at the moment. They were making tempura, couldn't step away right now. That wasn't good enough. They were sick and went to bed because they weren't feeling well. Was that going to be safe enough? Oh god, it's going again. I was thinking about it on the way back to my room when the phone rang once again. It was like they were calling because they knew I was going to lie. I didn't want to pick up, but I knew I had to. I suspect my parents weren't here. I should have just taken the phone off the hook under the pretense that I didn't realise that it was. But since the phone rang, I had to pick it up. I prepared myself and lifted up the receiver. Hello. I stopped announcing this was the Maibara residence. I had no reason to be kind to someone I didn't know the identity of. But unlike my uncouth voice, the person on the other side sounded goofy and light-hearted. Hello, my apologies for calling so late. This is Higurashi from the Okinamaya bookstore. Higurashi-san? Is that you, Maibara? Good evening. Good to hear you're doing well. Wait just a moment, please. I grabbed the portable handset and rushed up to my room with it. It was the same no matter where I was since there was no one else home, but I wanted to be in a spot that just felt a bit safer when speaking on the phone with Higurashi. Sorry for the wait. How are things? Anything changed since then? Since then? When was that exactly? There was something about the brazen way he talked that rubbed me the wrong way. The last time I spoke with Higurashi-san was 2 days ago. The day I stayed home from school. I met Higurashi-san on the way back from the hospital, and we headed into town for lunch and had a talk. Then after that, Rena and Mion came to check up on me. Whenever I spoke with Higurashi-san, they always knew about it. It was like that since the first time I met him. Today's phone call may well be found out by them as well. Hello, can you hear me, my bow? Sorry. What did you say? I asked if anything's changed since last time. There wasn't an answer, so I got a bit worried. Not really. The words stopped in my throat. There was a ton of stuff that happened, all of it baffling. What should I talk about? I didn't understand any of it, but I should try asking. If I didn't ask now, I may never have another chance. This night when my parents went home, I had no guarantees I would make it through the night safely, after all. Well, Ushi-san, it seems that someone is after me. Really? It could all just be a coincidence, but that day I missed school when I was sick, the two of them came to check up on me. Which two? Rena and Mion. They started asking about how I had lunch with you. What next? They left me some mochi when they came to visit, but there was a needle inside. Fortunately, I somehow didn't swallow it. I wonder, could that have just been a threat? About the needle. It's just one of those common sewing needles you see all the time. There's a hole to thread string through. Not that, my bao-san. The needle itself. That's evidence. It could be used as proof that they threatened you. Where's that needle? Oh shit, I bet he didn't. That's right, that's it. I dropped the receiver and rushed downstairs. When I tossed the mochi, I had overlooked it out of terror, but that needle was a valuable piece of evidence. I had certainly thrown the mochi and needle at the wall together. If it was there, then it would be on the living room wall. But his mother cleaned it up, didn't she? Or did he? Mother. But my prudent mother had cleaned that living room wall, and there was not a trace of mochi left on it. Could it be that I dropped it in the gap between the wall and the carpet? I frantically searched by running my palm along the carpet, but nothing turned up. I tried moving around the sofa and desks, pulling up the carpet, then flapping it around, but I couldn't find the needle. Did my mum clean up everything without noticing it? It was just 2 days ago. I didn't know what day they collected the burnable trash, but it may still be in the trash bin in the kitchen. I rushed into the kitchen, opened up the lid of the pail, and poured out the contents. But even at a glance, I could tell that it would be incredibly difficult to find a needle in this pile of trash. I was looking for a needle in a trash stack. Oh, Keiichi, you're so punny. I know, I'll try running my hands through it. It was a bit gross, but I was looking for a needle. If I felt a small prick, I'll be able to find it. It was a pretty tactless method, but it was the quickest. Same way back in the rubbish in the dump when they were looking through for something, wasn't he? Was he looking for newspapers, or was it something else? I can't remember. I held my breath and started striking the pile of trash with my hand. Filth flew about. There was nothing more disgusting than this, but it was not the time to be concerned about such details. I continued on for a while, but nothing turned up. I wanted to search more thoroughly, but I was still on the phone. I shouldn't keep Ushi-san waiting for too long. Later, when Mom got back, I'd have to ask her if there was a needle. I hastily began scribbling on the notepad affixed to the refrigerator with a magnet. Was there a needle? I scrawled the words with a red pen. I then dashed back up the stairs, where I had been keeping Ushi-san waiting for far too long. Hello? How did it go? I couldn't find it. I was really overwhelmed back then, and... I see. It'd be great if you could find it. Keep it safe. That's right, the needle wasn't the only incident. I had to tell him about this morning with a hit and run. Also, Ushi-san, that isn't all. Actually, this morning. That van was definitely aiming for me. I could say that without question due to the circumstances at that time. Did you see the license plate? I can search for it from here. Damn! He missed it again, the dick. I just flipped out yelling at him back then, but I didn't look at the plate. What failures on my part with the needle and the plate number. I was so focused just protecting myself that I let some of the most important details slip out of my grasp. I punched my pillow, annoyed at how worthless I was. I'm sorry, I don't know much more than that. It was a white van. Nothing to fret about, my bao-san. Anyone would be shaken up after being hit. I guess all of this really isn't a coincidence, is it? Ushi-san started to hem and haw over on the other end. I could imagine him folding his arms. Also, Rena is acting strange. How so? What Rena said on the way home today, asking why I was so much like Satoshi-kun. Now I could say with confidence that Rena knew what happened to Satoshi. She knew that there was more to it than him just simply disappearing. Rena knows. She knows something regarding what happened to Satoshi, the kid who was demoned away last year. What would that be exactly? Rena said I was the same as Satoshi. She said something to the effect that the way things are going, I'll end up with the same fate as Satoshi. Fate, you say? Exactly what kind of fate did she say would befall you? Transferring out, she said. Transferring out? Rena said Satoshi transferred out. So, given how things are going with me, I'll transfer out too. Ushi-san let out a stern sigh, and then grumbled loudly. My bao-san, that was probably some sort of threat, or maybe some type of warning. Not the same thing? I thought so too. At that point, I started to think. Would it be prudent to sum up everything that had happened up until now as the machinations of some human perpetrator? Other than the theory of it being Rena and the others, I was left with Oyashiro-sama's curse actually existing as the only other explanation. Oh dear lord if he says that one more time. Of course I couldn't tell that to Higurashi-san. Except, Rena's strange behaviour could be proof of either scenarios. Whether it was Oyashiro-sama's curse being real or everything being part of a conspiracy committed by all of the villagers, Rena was involved. Rena had to know something. Rena was suspicious. But yeah, what exactly was Rena? An alien. Dun dun dun. I couldn't help but think she was somehow involved with a prior string of mysterious deaths. I seem to recall that Higurashi-san had admitted that he had dug into Rena's past a little. He was probably just downplaying it when he said a little, meaning he had actually dug pretty deep, most likely. I wanted to hear about Rena. I wanted to know what happened at her previous school, among other things that were still unknown to me. If Rena was somebody I should suspect, no, not that. I wanted to know the truth. Tonight I was alone in this huge house. Even though I said I couldn't count on them, I had lost the security I felt I had just by my parents being around. It wasn't like this house was some sort of fortress or castle. If a malicious person decided to use brute force, they'd easily gain entry. There were no other residences close to the Mayabara residence. No one would be able to hear anything, no matter how loud it was. I had never felt as much resentment towards my father's artistic temperament, and the fact that he had this house built in such a remote location as I did right now. I wondered if I would still be here by tomorrow morning. Was that a doorbell? So I had to ask, right now, because I had no idea when the next chance would come. Ushi-san, I have something I need to ask about. Please don't keep anything from me. Sure, ask away. Even though he was so far away on the other end of the line, this was the most reliable he had ever felt. I wanted to ask about Rena, about what happened at her previous school. Actually, regarding Rena's... I noticed the sound had been going on for a while now. Yeah, it did. Since I was so focused on the call, I hadn't paid attention to it at first, but I finally realised it was the doorbell. The time was 7 o'clock. It was past the time the postman would be making a delivery, and past any sensible time for a neighbour to be visiting. I considered just acting like nobody was home, but that wouldn't be good. That would ruin all the work I put in making it look like my parents were home. I need to answer the door. Hello, my bao-san? Sorry, someone seems to be at the door. I'm gonna go see who it is. A guest? I see. My apologies. Should we end this phone call now? That'll be a problem. No, I'll be back in a second. Do you mind if I just leave the phone on? It's fine, I don't mind. Security. I dropped the handset on my bed and dashed down to the door. I needed to make up a good excuse to get them to leave. I had a hunch it was the lady who called right before Higurashi-san did. In which case, it would be one of the neighbours who's friends with my mum. I'll just say mum isn't feeling well and went to bed early. That would be the easiest option. I need a drink, sorry. Anyway. It'd be hard for her to ask me to wake my mum up if she's not feeling well. The bell continued to ring at regular intervals. If someone didn't answer after you rang the bell so much, you'd normally give up and go home, wouldn't you? Without removing the chain, I opened the door slightly and peered out at the visitor. A chill ran down my spine. I knew it. Somewhere deep inside I had prepared for this moment. I tried to escape by imagining it was the easiest person to deal with, one of my mom's friends. Good evening. Rena? There shouldn't be any reason for Rena to come over at this hour. The timing also made me feel uneasy, because it was just as I was about to ask Higurashi-san about Rena. I wish I could have chalked this up to mere coincidence, but those unsettling words from Mion several days ago echoed back to me. There's nothing this old man doesn't know. You alone, Rena? Yeah. Seems that Mion wasn't with her, but that didn't change the situation at all. Why did you come here? Hey Keiichi-kun, I'd like you to open the door so we can talk. Can I come inside, I wonder? I wonder. It was true that speaking through a chained door wasn't the right way to talk to a classmate, but... At my house, the chain has to be on at night. Don't worry about it. Then, it can't be helped, I guess. Rena pouted rather sadly, but she kept smiling at least, and her effort to keep that smile up was quite pitiful. Even though she was tugging at my heartstrings, I didn't lower my guard. As long as I stayed like this, even if it made my heart ache, my life wasn't in danger. What I really feared, more than the possibility that hoodlums would assault me if I removed the chain, was trusting Rena enough to remove the chain, and having my friendship betrayed. As long as the chain wasn't unlatched, even if it made my heart ache, I wouldn't have to deal with being betrayed by Rena. Since it didn't seem like I'd removed the chain from her silent urging, she appeared to give up on trying to get into the entranceway. Have you eaten yet, Keiichi-kun? No, I haven't eaten. Since my mom wasn't there, dinner won't be ready no matter how long I waited. I laid down when I got home, was woken up by the phone, and didn't have a chance to eat since I used up all that time talking. I was gonna have cup noodles in any case. I could just eat one whenever I wanted to. No, not yet. What about it? Then good! Oh. Look here. I bought a bunch of dishes. Then I held out a stack of boxes wrapped in a cloth. If I could use your kitchen, I can heat up the miso soup and other stuff. It's fine, you don't need to do that. But there's a lot of tofu and vegetables in it. Does Keiichi-kun not like that type of stuff, I wonder? I wonder. There's no way I wouldn't like that. I love miso soup with lots of ingredients. White radish, carrots, burdock root and potatoes, dense and fibrous root vegetables. Yeah, that miso soup. Looks incredible. I also brought rice, so if you microwave it, you can eat it really quickly. Without a doubt, rice needs miso soup. Stuffing rice down your gullet, sipping miso soup in between ravenous bites. Oh yes, how wonderful it is to be born Japanese. I'd like to try that actually. I don't know if I'd like it, but I'd try it. Also, I made some more pickles. I made sensei pickles this time. I don't like pickles. You can keep those, Rena. We'll make those the poisonous things. Before I had moved here to Hinamazawa, I scoffed at the mountain veg called sansai. But I was captivated by their charm the first time I tried them. Such a deep yet light flavour. The vegetables from the supermarket were tasteless and bland compared to these. If I had to describe them, then they were the vegetables for the uninitiated. To become an expert such as myself, you first had to partake of sansai. It was common knowledge around here that the Ryugu family's traditional pickles were wonderfully delicious. No matter what kind of pickles they were, they go as well with that fluffy white rice. And also, what else has she brought? Bloody hell! But wait, there's more! So delicious, it just seems so delicious. Farewell to my unhealthy self who said he'd make do with cup noodles. Rena appeared to be in good spirits and she was offering such a delicious sounding dinner. The stress evaporated from my gut and hunger reared its ferocious head. At the same time, my weariness of Rena suddenly dwindled. Rena did say she was alone. It shouldn't be a problem letting her inside. Though the possibility that it was laced with poison still hadn't been ruled out. At that moment, a cold chill ran down my spine once again. I can understand why such a sensation had occurred just then. But the voice inside me was sounding the alarm. Miss Happy Rena, speaking of this charming dinner, was dependent on one premise. Ooh, I like how they've made it all black and white. And that premise was that tonight, dinner hadn't been made at my house, meaning it was under the assumption that my mum, who would be making it, wasn't here. In any normal household, 7 o'clock would be around the middle of dinner time. If my mum were here, we'd be eating dinner around this time as well. The fact that she brought over all the makings of a meal at this time was inherently strange. She knows that his mother and or his parents are there. Unless she knew. Rena. Did she know that my parents weren't home? But there was also the chance that this was a bluff. I had turned on the lights and a bunch of other stuff to make it seem like my parents were here. There was a chance that Rena was unsure if my parents were home. But I had to wonder. The laundry, the garage, the evening paper. There were plenty of signs of them being hastily tidied up. It was hard to say that Rena didn't have a chance to determine if my parents were here or not. But there was no reason for me to confess that right now. I should try holding on to that fact as long as I could. First of all, the chain was still latched. As long as I didn't take it off, Rena won't be able to do anything to me. So was Windows. Smash the windows. She's done it before. I'm quite grateful, but dinner will be ready pretty soon. Huh? Is that so? Is that so? I know you went through all the effort and everything, but, well, unable to think of a good way to refuse, my words trailed off weakly. But some of this could work as side dishes, I think. I'm sorry, we have more than enough already. My mum always makes quite a few sides. If it was me, I'd accept them. At least through the gap in the door, and, I wouldn't eat them. You have side dishes? With a smile that bordered on cringe, I dodged the questions apologetically. But the feeling I tried to ignore began creeping up my back again. I spoke as if my mom was setting down dinner right now, but it didn't mesh well with what Rena was saying. Rena was talking as if she was aware of some obvious fact. And that I was aware of it as well. So Keiichi can cook. What did you make, I wonder? No, well, it's not that. Rena had assumed out of nowhere that I had made the dishes. No, not so much that I'd made them, but rather that my mom hadn't. Did you really make them? The side dishes? Did you, Keiichi-kun? It wasn't me who made them. My mom did. No, she's making them. Right now. So you see, I'm sorry, but I can't eat what you brought. Rena fell silent at that moment. At that moment, I felt that the light that suddenly disappeared from her eyes. How would I try guessing what Keiichi-kun's dinner will be? It doesn't matter what I'm going to eat. Let's see. Conversation might appear natural at first glance, but Rena was firmly in control. Felt like I was being interrogated. Your dinner, I wonder, is it something that can be made with just hot water? Hey now, stop with the insults. I can't believe you'd belittle my mom's extravagant dinner like that. Tickets sold out, full capacity already. It's that amazing. Tried my best to put on a strong front, but I couldn't grit my teeth quite right. So instead, I looked like someone who was borderline hysterical. But Rena showed no reaction whatsoever, even to that silliness. Keiichi-kun, did your mother really leave you dinner? No, you see, she didn't leave me dinner, she's making it right now. It's almost time for dinner. Rena had taken that assertion of mine, that my mother was home and making dinner right now, and was completely ignoring it. I could tell that the more I panicked, the colder Rena became. Keiichi-kun. At that moment an uncomfortable chill crept in from the gap in the doorway. Is your mum home, I wonder? I wonder? I couldn't keep up the charade anymore. Rena, she knew full well that my parents weren't home. But I'd come too far to admit that now. Anyway, my parents were here, and we'd be having dinner soon. That was the situation I had concocted. So I answered. I told her she was here. She's here, of course. I could feel the humidity drying out from the surrounding air. Rena's eyes were becoming even more frigid, piercing me with a gelid glare. Oh, she's off. Why? Huh? What do you mean? I tried acting casual, but that facade was torn off me that instant I looked into Rena's eyes. The look, it informed me of Rena's response faster than she could open her mouth. Why have you been lying to me, I wonder? I wonder. I'm not lying. That's a lie, isn't it? It's not a lie. Oh god, lies! Rena's outburst sent a jolt surging through my body. Rena and I were still separated by what few inches that slightly ajar, but still chained door could afford. Despite that, I was still being cornered. My house, which I considered a safe haven until now, had become more like a dark alleyway where no one could save me. Should I guess your dinner, Keiichi-kun? Let's see. I knew now that Rena had already known that my parents would not be here tonight. But it was still so strange that it had come to this. Even if she somehow knew that my parents weren't home, there's no way she should be able to guess what I'd be eating tonight. But Rena said she'd guess. How could she guess it? How could she know it was instant cup noodles? That's right, isn't it? That I was going to eat. Wait, the cooking repertoire of a man who can't do housework is probably nothing but cup noodles after all. Looking at this statistically, it was the most probable answer. That didn't mean she was guessing. I don't think you'd be full with just noodles. I think having rice and stuff will definitely hit the spot. Calm down, Keiichi. This was just coincidence. Rena was just reading certain tells of mine. So the fact that she was inferring what I was thinking alarmed me. But it wasn't as if she was actually reading my mind. It was as if it was being read, then she was a demon. No, not a demon. Things like that. They couldn't possibly exist. Do you like them? Do you mean noodles? No. I do not know what that is supposed to mean. Rena indicated that the point my answer was addressing was wrong. The rebuttal was so short that I momentarily didn't understand the words Rena had spoken. Sorry, Rena. What did you say just now? Huh? About what? Just now you asked me if there was something that I liked, didn't you? It wasn't long before I regretted how carelessly I had pushed forward with that question. It was such a simple answer, that was why I wasn't able to comprehend it. Pork bone and ginger flavour. Oh, okay. I wondered how I appeared in the moments my mind were completely blank, until the moment I was able to recover. As my field of view began to distort, slowly swirling in a counterclockwise direction, I lost all sense of balance. Why'd you know that? I didn't even deny it. That was the type of frenzied state I was in. How could Rena know even this? Not even caring as I mashed my head against the door, I fixated my gaze on Rena. But she didn't even flinch when she saw me do that. I certainly did buy them. I bought a bunch at once. I bought a whole case. How could you know that? Why, I wonder. Quite strange, isn't it? Isn't it? How could you dodge a question at a time like this? The chain and the door suddenly were no longer protecting me. How'd you know? Why'd you know? Answer me. You bought them at 7th Mart, didn't you? A shiver ran up my spine. I tried covering it up with an angry facade. Like I said, why do you know that? I was behind you, following you the whole time. What are you saying? I couldn't understand why she was saying she'd been following me all this time. That's because Rena was right behind Keiichi-kun's back the whole time. Oh, like that night. That night I was absorbed in my phone conversation with Higurashi-san. I didn't even sense her being there, standing behind the door, behind me, standing there, just like that. When Keiichi was picking out the noodles, I was watching the entire time. You picked out so many different flavours, didn't you? Then your mum got angry. If you were going to pick the expensive ones, then you should just pick one type, she said. Then Keiichi-kun picked out that big box of pork bone of ginger flavour that he loved so much, didn't he? I like it too, pork bone noodles, but I can never eat a whole big bowl myself. My brain was paralysed, dulling my senses. It might have been a defence mechanism to diminish the fear I was feeling to non-traumatizing levels. With the fear being diminished, the fog enveloping my mind was cleared away. Then, I could understand what Rena was saying and started to put meaning behind her words. Even so, my fear hadn't subsided completely. It was like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, eyes closed so I didn't have to look down. It didn't actually solve any of the basic problems. I slowly took a step backwards, and as I withdrew, Rena advanced. So Keiichi-kun, can you open this? We can eat dinner together. I'm sure it's going to be delicious, so, okay? Rena's pale, slender fingers squirmed through the crack in the door one at a time, as if they had a mind of their own, rattling the chain. If she had unlatched the chain from the door, a feeling of terror would have just exploded within me. But Rena didn't do that. She was simply imploring me to remove the chain. She was doing her hardest to light the fuse to the powder keg in my heart, trying again and again. But it doesn't light. It doesn't light. Open up, Keiichi-kun. Please go away. I beg you, please go away. How can you say something so mean? I wonder. Please go away. Go away. The powder keg inside me finally went off. No smouldering, it just exploded. I tackled the door. The force through the door had knocked Rena momentarily off balance. I couldn't hesitate here. I grabbed onto the doorknob with both hands, planted my feet firmly, and pulled with all my might. But that slamming sound I so desired didn't happen. I could feel a tiny, disturbing bit of resistance keeping the door from closing, and the source of that was Rena's fingers. Each of those fingers wriggling, squirming around like the tendrils of a carnivorous plant through the crack in the doorway. It hurts, Keiichi-kun, it hurts. It wasn't a harsh shriek, but more of a yelp she was trying to keep back. Go away, go away, go away! I kept on pulling on the door with all my might. I didn't even realise that if I didn't loosen my pull on the door at least momentarily, Rena wouldn't be able to pull her fingers out, and that was why the door wasn't closing. It really hurts, Keiichi-kun. I'm sorry if I was messing around too much. I didn't care one bit for her apology. No matter how much she apologised, it didn't change any of what she had done up until now. It didn't change anything. It hurts, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go away, go away, go away! Rena couldn't leave, even if she wanted to, because I trapped her fingers. Rena's white fingers had become deep red and were no longer even squirming. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Go away, go away, go away! I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Rena's apologies were occasionally twisted with pain, but like a broken record, she was intent on repeating it over and over. Go away, go away, go away! Oh god, this is going mad. I pulled on the door even harder. Finally, Rena's fingers were somehow able to slip out from their imprisonment in the doorway. The moment that happened, the door closed soundly, and I could hear the thud of Rena falling on her butt on the other side. I locked the door immediately. It made a loud clunk, voicing my rejection to Rena. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Keiichi-kun, I'm sorry. Open up, Keiichi-kun. Rena leaned against the door, apologising profusely and nothing else. After confirming that I was sufficiently sealed off from her, I trudged away from the entranceway. On the other side, I could still hear Rena echoing her apology. I'm sorry, those pitiful words, they would be forever seeking my forgiveness. I didn't feel bad about this at all, but that wasn't out of any sort of malice. I felt a sort of hazy sense of relief that I was able to escape from Rena. Before, Miona threatened me at this doorway, saying there was nothing she didn't know. And just now, at the same place, Rena told me the same thing. My feeble attempts to disguise the fact my parents weren't home had served no purpose from the start. I should have just pretended to be out, and not even opened the door. My meagre plans hadn't helped at all. In Hinamazawa, it was impossible to outwit them. Even though I was on the other side of the door, I wanted to get as far away from Rena as possible. One step, two steps, with each one, her snivelling apologies became more distant. I sprinted up the stairs and dove into my room. As you would expect, I was finally no longer able to hear Rena repeating her endless apology. Diving into my bed, I was startled by the hard lump I felt. There was something in my bed. It was the receiver. I finally remembered. I was in the middle of a call with Uishi-san. Looking at the clock, apparently not much time had passed since I went downstairs. Could it be that my clock had run out of batteries? I had talked with Rena for so long, how did almost no time pass? But the hand on the clock was ticking forward 1 second every second as usual. As I put the still warm receiver to my ear, time, which felt frozen, began moving once again. Hello, Uishi-san? Sorry to keep you waiting. No, not at all. I didn't wait that long. It became apparent that the amount of time that had passed between myself and Uishi-san was different. Over the phone, I could hear an energetic voice from a sports program or something. It drove home just how far away Uishi-san really was. Rena came just now. Did she come to play? I wasn't confident that I could coherently explain the situation to Uishi-san, but I didn't need to right now. Right now, I needed to know about Rena. That's right, I was planning to ask Uishi-san more about Rena, but Rena's little visit had interrupted the conversation. What was true and what was false, I couldn't tell. The one thing I knew was a single grim reality that Rena was suspicious. I might be able to figure something out if I asked Uishi-san about her. Up until now, I'd regretted it whenever I forced myself to ask about things that I was better off not knowing. But looking at it that way, you could say I'd hit rock bottom. There's no possible way I could feel any more regret than I did right now. No. Rather, I wanted to know if there was anything beyond this I would regret more. Forget about tomorrow. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility for something to happen tonight. I wanted to know everything I could. I was absolutely not going to die like this. Not without knowing anything. I definitely won't. Regarding Rena Ryugu-san, I did a bit of digging. Yeah, well, it wasn't much. I understood that Uishi-san was talking in circles. A bit meant I dug so deep it'd be hard to discuss with you since you're her friend. I want to know everything from your research. I don't think you'll be very interested in what I have to say though. Uishi-san. I spoke as calmly as possible to Uishi, who was continuing to avoid the issue. And then I said it. I think Rena Ryugu is suspicious. Even if the past incidents were from Uishi-sama's curse, Rena Ryugu is involved. Do you have some sort of proof that makes you believe Rena-san is suspicious? The manner in which Uishi-san spoke became very firm. Do you have some sort of proof? That was him talking as a detective. I only have circumstantial evidence. I see. I could tell even over the phone how disappointed Uishi was. Pulling on the fishing line when he felt the bite, only to reel in the bait. Disappointed, but ready to cast the line once more, that's how it seemed. Uishi, you can't do anything without physical proof, can you? What I meant was, you can't come and save me without proof. I stuck that barb in there. As Uishi loved roundabout ways of saying things, he understood me just fine. It's fine, my Bara. I'll protect you. That was not the least bit reassuring. Uishi-san was just using me to continue his investigation. I was just going to get killed. My corpse would be an important piece of evidence. That was all I was to him. Whether I'm alive or dead may be of no concern to your investigation, but it's all over for me when I die. Uishi-san went silent on the other end of the line. That may have been too blunt, but I didn't care. All I needed to relate to Uishi-san was that I was currently in a very dangerous position. So please, tell me about Rena. Satoshi transferred out. Not too far in the future, I'll probably also do what Rena called transferring out as well. But you won't be able to find my corpse. You haven't even been able to find Satoshi's body yet. Alright, my Bara, please calm down. I was already suppressing my agitation, even without Uishi-san having to tell me. It wouldn't solve anything if I continued to scream about my mistrust to the police. It would seem that I could only depend on myself and the bat Satoshi left behind to protect me. Then, I at least wanted to know about what happened when Rena transferred schools. You're aware that this won't be very interesting, right? Uishi, realizing my resolve couldn't be swayed, finally caved. Right now, to me, there's nothing that I'll find uninteresting. Please. There are a few things I need you to agree to. Okay. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? It might not be true. I don't understand what you mean. There isn't one main investigation for the mysterious chain of deaths in Hinamazawa. Each one is treated as its own individual case. Thus, Rena has never been linked to any of the investigations. Basically, you see, this is an investigation of Rena done by the police. And is a personal inquiry, is what you're telling me? This will make things a lot quicker since you understand. All of it is from either phone calls or meetings and interviews, so they aren't corroborated. I'm asking you to take this all with a grain of salt, is what I mean. Do we have an agreement? All of it is just from what you heard. Yes, my apologies, it's all my personal investigation, you see. That thing. Before, you said you saw Rena's chart, didn't you? I'm sure I heard you say that. Ushi-san paused for a moment on the other end of the line. I told you that too? Please pretend you didn't hear anything about that. I didn't care about Ushi-san having certain obligations or responsibilities. I also didn't care if there was no proof. Even if they were just rumours, there's no smoke without fire, after all. Please tell me, Ushi-san. Understood. Ushi-san finally opened those tight lips of his. It seemed that Rena lived in Hinamazawa a long time ago. She'd moved to Ibaraki Prefecture after she finished elementary school. Then, following that, right after transferring, the unfortunate incident with the break-in of the school windows happened. Then Rena confided to the doctor. It was Oyashiro-sama. This was all he knew. Oh, well, okay, didn't get to know much then. There isn't much difference between what I know and what you know, Maibara-san. What part did you investigate further? I didn't need to ask. It was the incident that happened just after she transferred. The incident she was responsible for, and what she divulged to the doctor afterwards, correct? Yes. After you learned about that, you started suspecting Rena and the others, didn't you? Yes, I did suspect them. So they're the ones after all? Ah no, that's not what I meant by suspect them. Ushi-san was the type of person to say things with confidence, but these particular words were less than reassuring. Then, who did you suspect? That it was Oyashiro-sama? That it was the curse? Really exists? Yeah, right. Ushi-san's laugh was quite dry, certainly not the kind that would make you want to join in. Ushi-san resumed the conversation about the dubious circumstances behind Satoshi's disappearance, the course of events up until the start of delving into Rena's past. Just then, there was thunder in the distance, and a heavy rain started pouring down. It came without warning, rain so heavy it felt like it could beat you down. I had left the window in my room open a crack to let the heat out. The violent wind danced into my room, making the curtains flap wildly. What is it? Ah, nothing, it suddenly started raining heavily. Sorry, please continue. I got up while still on the phone and closed the window. I said at the beginning it was an incident, but because neither the school nor the victims filed charges, the police were never involved. So you see, those involved were very reluctant to talk. Regardless of there being a victim who had one eye beaten so badly that it had permanent damage. It could have been the school, or possibly some individual made arrangements to keep this from going public. Also, the psychologist who was very strict about their professional ethics. Hello? Maibara-san, can you hear me? There was the figure of a person standing by the light near the mailbox this whole time. Even in this torrential rain, they didn't have an umbrella. They were unquestionably drenched from head to toe. In this shower, which more resembled a waterfall, droplets of water dripped down from her hair. Ooh. Just standing there, both arms dangling at her side. They're not at the side. In one hand was a stack of boxes, wrapped in cloth. Her eyes focused on my room, focused on me as I was about to close the window. Her mouth was methodically repeating a chewing motion. It was as if she had something hard to chew in her mouth, with her cheeks puffing out. What could she be eating over there? Could it be that at this time I was more enthralled by Rena instead of the shocking developments being brought to light by Ushi-san? If it hadn't started raining, I wouldn't have gone to the window. Then I wouldn't have noticed Rena, nor would I have noticed that. Rena's mouth was moving in the same pattern. She wasn't eating something, she was repeating something. What was it? Was she repeating? To me? What was she saying? And why was I, right up against the window, fixated on her? Hello? Maibara-san? Can you hear me? Hello? I'm sorry. Huh? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's what she's repeating. Hello? Maibara? What's the matter? Even in this torrential downpour, Rena was still apologising. The other self inside me drew the curtain hastily with my right hand, blocking my view of the outside. But even doing that, Rena's relentless apology still reached my ears. I'm sorry. I can't say it over and over. If I forgive you for this, will you forgive me for that? Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Damn it. Why did I have to forgive her? I'm no one who wants to be forgiven. What part of me can't you forgive? I won't be killed. If you won't forgive me, then I won't forgive you either. I won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive. I won't forgive. My Balsan, if you can hear me, then please respond. Hello. Oh, that's a good part to end. The game's really getting good now, isn't it? There are 2 new tips, but that seemed like a really long episode. It's like an hour long. Let's see what the new ones are. They're just like... Oh, let's just do them, is it? Let's go for it. I see it in movies quite often, but what is it exactly? Multiple personalities are thought to be escapism. It's a form of escape? I didn't realise that. Correct. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but it's believed to be a type of defense for the brain to retain mental stability. Hypothetically, poor people imagine themselves as wealthy as a form of escapism, is it not? Is this also a form of multiple personality disorder? I won't go that far, but broadly speaking, one could infer that. It's something that occurs in us all. Does a split personality occur when one cannot tell which is reality and which is the escape? That's difficult to say. There's some who agree with that and some who disagree. There's no consensus. Then is the occurrence of multiple personalities still an unknown phenomenon? Something not fully comprehended in the psychiatric field? Unfortunately, that's the current state of things. We can only put our hope in future research. But it's sort of cool having a split personality. What kind of people get split personalities? Recent studies find that those who develop it, or rather those who are more susceptible to developing it, may be genetically predisposed or may have had abnormal mental development. Some say that childhood abuse increases the chances. Speaking of which, person A here experienced abuse as a child, didn't he? How sad. Person A has 7 different personalities. Oh wow! Let's watch a video of him. Right after these commercials. Trying to get you to see that Rena's split personalities. What, you know, trying to explain what they are, I guess. Which is quite interesting, you know. I think it's quite interesting. At the 7th mart. Oh, this is when they bought the noodles and stuff and Rena was right behind him. 7th mart was a bargain supermarket with food and alcohol. What's this, Keiichi? So many. There's no reason to get all different kinds, is there? I flopped all different coloured cup noodle bowls into the cart. Cup noodles have gotten so elaborate recently, and there are a bunch of different types. One try each of them at least once. I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd give it at least a try. Keiichi, buy them in the big case, it's cheaper. Dad faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. Dad knew there was no point of him butting in. Then I'd only get to eat one kind. I'd get bored with it. I was resisting as a formality. I'd already given up inside, wasn't sure which case of noodles to get. If you can't pick, then Mummy will pick for you. Don't have to rush me. I quickly search the cases of noodles for what I want. Pork bun ginger, large cup. And my nose is itching. Hey Keiichi, can you get a more normal one? If I let Mum pick, she'd do it on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavoured. Ugh. Pork bun is good. I don't want a big bowl of tasteless stuff. I remembered insisting that the noodles I picked were the right kind. In this frozen memory in time, this encapsulated world, I didn't have the power to look around my surroundings. So, I did what I could and reached out with my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the presence I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through my field of vision, I couldn't see Rena. I rewound the situation, searching, but of course I couldn't find her. Then, was she spying at me from my blind spot? I go through the sound and presences again, looking. I could sense the other customers. They were all mixed about, moving as they pleased. There was nobody looking over this way, and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I would definitely notice if someone was right behind me, even when I wasn't on my guard. I smiled wryly at the thought of using a vague word like probably, right before contradicting it with definitely. Then I paused my mental replay as a chill ran down my spine. There's definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. That was a terror unlike any other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I would definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on, and there was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store searching for a case of noodles. Running through the instant noodle section, bad-mouthing my mum, but there was that presence constantly at my back, sticking to me like a shadow. Is that really bad-mouthing? Trying to debate a bit. No wait to see what it was. Realising it now, after the fact, was horrifying and repulsive. In that moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying that cardboard box. Tip-tap. But listening to that moment again, I could hear footsteps other than mine going pit-pat with every step. The anime does this part really well. I mean, not in the market like this, but the whole Keiichi being followed step for step. While I was running, the sound of those barefoot footsteps going pit-pat were right behind me. Me running around gleefully in that closed-off moment in time. But I didn't hear it. No, I heard it. That's why I remembered it. I didn't think I had heard anything. That's why I didn't turn around. That's why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the pit-pat of those footsteps had followed me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. I couldn't run any faster than I had run at that time. I couldn't turn around. I hadn't turned around before, not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. The shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That's why it made no sound. That was all. At that time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking with my parents. I was just standing there. This was undeniable. And yet, I heard it. A pit-pat. That shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At that time, the entire world had gone dark. A sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. I wanted to end it. Someone turn on the light. Except my body couldn't move. As if I was sewn into the moment in time. My past self's hair stood on end. That's impossible. No, that's just breaking the rules. I haven't moved. So you shouldn't be moving either. I couldn't move. So you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. If that sound echoed in the darkness once again, the hair on the back of my neck pricked up on end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move, like how the presence was moving behind me? I quickly realised I could move. It's just that I was scared and didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. It was something unforgivable in this moment in time. But I needed to turn around immediately. So if my entire being was trying to force me to stop, it began to administer a pain like a needle being stuck into my every pore. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I'm not scared. A scream I was unable to vocalize. Oh god, now it's a scream. I turned around. At first I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What? What is this? The situation in front of my eyes, it was like a mouth biting an apple and slurping the juice. The way you would do with an apple, my mind was being eaten. It began to munch down, slurping the juices because it was like an apple. Meaning, what was in front of me was... a cup of noodles. Wow. Ooh, an achievement. Detective on Keiichi. So I think I've seen all the tips. I think we've seen all the tips, so we are getting to the last chapter now, probably. Next. Oh lord, that was a long one. I apologise if I went a bit long. But this has been Greeny XI. I hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you again next time when I'm pretty sure we're going for the last chapter, if not the last episode. I just don't know with this game. Thank you so much for watching and for watching all of this episode if you have, because that's been a long one. I'll see you again in a bit when things only get creepier. In a bit, folks.